Hey everyone, John here. I've got something exciting. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. I am your host, John Espinosa. I am your host, John Espinosa, to the Leading Leaders podcast. Finding success out of failure. So as we fail, because that is inevitable, failure is inevitable. How do we, from a mindfulness standpoint, either recover from that failure, move forward, continue to move forward from that failure, learn from our lessons, learn from our mistakes, and get better? Resiliency. You heard Rose talk about resiliency, and it's not enough just to survive, but to thrive. So how do we find success out of failure from a leadership, from a mindfulness standpoint? Being curious is one of the most probably interesting characteristics that leaders can exhibit. And the reason I say that is there is true curiosity, and then there is being curious or asking questions, trying to get people to see your point or lead them to a point that you want. And that's not what I'm talking about here. I really want you all, whenever you go into a conversation or we are trying to learn more about something, we need to, one, assume positive intent. And that simply is that individual who you're having a conversation with has the best interest for both you and them at heart. If you're consistently thinking in the past, or you're dwelling on your past successes or past failures, what's your team going to do? They're going to do the same. They're going to follow how you behave, not necessarily what you say. So even in those off the cuff or those small conversations, in my one-on-one conversations, I have to program my leadership mind to consistently stay present and to look forward. In doing that, people are going to follow that same mindset. They're going to stay present and they're going to move forward. How do we do that as leaders? How do you provide direction to your teams? We do that through our vision. What's our vision? We have to be able to articulate where we're going through our vision so that people will understand, one, when we get there, and two, creates buy-in. We got to have people with the buy-in as we're leading the way towards the vision. And that occurs through that on-after principle. I always start with the culture piece, the values. A lot of times I walk in the door and you'll find pretty quickly an organization that values culture. They normally have signage. Employees or people, will be able to identify their culture pretty quick if you ask what their values are, what their beliefs are, what the core existence, why the company is doing what they're doing. I want to talk about inclusion. And it's easy to talk about inclusion when you talk about exclusion. And many of you probably over the course of your lives have been in situations where you have felt excluded. It may be in a work environment. It may be in a personal environment. It may be in a club or an organization that you have been a part of. You may have been younger. You may be in your current state, or even in organizations that you join up. It's a great idea at first, and then the shininess wears off and you begin to become or feel excluded. I want to focus on the inclusion part, but I think it's important for all of us to take ourselves to the exclusion, the feeling of exclusion, because it's not a feeling that's comfortable. It's not a feeling that I want anybody on my team to feel as if they're excluded, if their opinion doesn't matter, if it's not valued, if they always see me maybe talking to a specific person or going to lunch with a specific person or people or group of people, and they're not getting invited, or they don't at least get the offer, or whatever it may be, and for that individual where they feel excluded from the larger group. That is something as frontline leaders, we need to have our spidey senses and begin to pick up on those things. The three things I want you to focus on when we talk about leading yourself are, one, see yourself as a leader. Get in front of that mirror, tell yourself, I am a leader, and believe it. Say it again if you don't believe it, and then say it again until you start believing it. The second piece, know your values, and then what value you bring to your relationships with others. And then third but not least, your strengths, your gaps, and your blind spots. Be able to identify those. Those are where you're going to work on. Those are where you'll seek professional, whether it's mentorship or coaching help in. And a lot of times during those sessions, they're going to ask you, where do you want to start? Where do you see yourself? What's your goal? What do you want to get out of this? Guess what? You've already created that list of strengths, gaps, and blind spots that you can share with that person. And then you already halfway through that first session and on the road to strengthening those again. Being a leader of one. When I go out and I talk to, whether it's the young leaders or even seasoned leaders, I make sure that it all starts with being a leader of one. And who is that one? That's you. That's yourself. You have to lead within before you can lead others. If you're mindful about being a leader of one, you're going to be a good leader to everybody. You're going to be a leader that people come to get advice. You're going to be a leader that people want to be around. You're going to be a leader that puts others before your own needs and their interests before your own interests. You're going to make people feel as if they are seen, and you're going to be the most interested person in the rooms. Listen intent. That's the second one. Make sure that active listening, whatever you want to call it. I know there's a lot of buzzwords that go around, but for me, listening looks like I am intently looking at the individual who is speaking, and I am consuming that information. I'm not thinking about what my next thought is going to be or the next word that's coming out of my mind or my mouth. I quiet my mind and I listen to that individual wholeheartedly. And again, remember, I'm checking those assumptions. We're humans. We bring in our biases to the situations, but I leave that out. And I'm intently listening to those individuals that are speaking. And strive to be a 10. Everybody that's listening to this podcast can be a 10. 10 out of 10 leader. If you're a 10 out of 10, that means that you are attracting the best and brightest to sit at the table with you, not for you, with you, and share their thoughts, share their ideas. Make sure that we are making the best possible decision that we possibly can. That's what I'm striving to be, a 10 out of a 10 leader. So 3 things to get a diverse and inclusive leadership mindset. Hey everyone, John here. I wanted to jump on and quickly talk about my Kickstart the New Year Challenge. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you got a lot of irons in the fire and you're not really progressing, you're not getting anywhere, maybe you feel lost. I know I did. And over the past decade, I have been working on a coaching program to help myself, and now I want to give it to you. Head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, sign up. You're not going to want to miss it. You owe it to yourself to kickstart the new year. Get going now. Don't wait till January 1 when everybody else is going. Get ahead of the game. You owe it to yourself. What I want to just convey to you as we wrap up is challenge yourself as leaders. That mindfulness of being curious, being a student of the game. Be mindful whenever you are going through something, write down or take a mental just capture of the situation, how you interacted the situation, best practices, and the result of the situation. And then that will carry you forward into whatever next opportunity that will be presented to you that may be uncomfortable. But if you follow those 3 steps, be a student of the game, be curious, and that will make you become comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's going to take you into those opportunities, and you're going to see exponential growth out of those opportunities that you probably would have said no to or you wouldn't have done if you wouldn't have set yourself up for success and followed those 3 steps. Energy, people like to call the negative energy, the positive energy. You can feel that from across the room. So that's what I'm talking about, that energy. Assume a positive intent. Am I assuming a positive intent? Am I curious? Am I remaining curious? Am I asking good questions? And then validate. Am I validating my assumptions? Do you believe that the people who you are responsible leading are doing the right thing? And if you don't, you need to unpack that. Is there a cause? Is there some previous baggage? You've been in a situation, because I can take this situation that I just went through and that will last, that will feed forward into the relationships that I have from now on, or I can learn from it and start to believe. Leadership is about ebbs and flows. So we have to ride those ebbs and flows and lead according to the situation. Lead according to the situation. You're going to lead situationally depending on success, failure, where you're at, if you're static, if you're trying to implement through change, if you're moving people around, or maybe pivoting and moving in a different direction, you're going to have to lead through all those situations. I had a great mentor tell me that a bad decision that takes a long time to make and a bad decision that takes a short time to make, they're still bad decisions. So for the most part, make sure that you're in that strategic mindset and you're in the tactical mindset when you are making those decisions. As a leader, that's going to go a long way for you. And in the end, both of them, you're going to fail. We don't make 100% correct decisions. The point is to fail fast in the tactical decision and be able to pivot when you see things going awry with your strategic decision. Your network being your net worth. And that is 100% true. So let's look at them from a leadership standpoint. So small decisions that you can make every day as a leader are getting projects done, reaching out to people and having that conversation with them on a daily basis. Are you too busy? Do you make time, or do you reach out and talk to your people? That's a small decision, but it will impact the quality of your life as a leader. Make sure that you cultivate your experience. Recognize those trends. Don't bury your head in the sand. There are decisions that you are going to make that you just feel that's coming from your gut. And I've talked about that before. There's a scientific reason. There's experience there. I hear people all the time, well, this just doesn't feel right. And I always dig deeper. Why doesn't it feel right? Again, going back to cultivating that experience, and you have to commit yourself to making decisions that you don't have 100% of the information. And if you have 100%, great, good. Make an informed decision and then go with it. And whatever the results are, at least they probably will be more favorable if you have 100%. If there's one thing that's consistent about leadership, you, the leader, need to make the decision. And when you make that decision, you got to own it. You just have to own it, good or bad, is making sure that you define the problem and spend some time here. Spend some time getting to the root cause, defining the problem, and or defining that opportunity. Step 2, you're going to begin to analyze options. So this is your brainstorming phase. You're going to brainstorm any option that's possible. And then step 3, you're selecting an option. So go back. How do you select an option as a leader? Are you going to be collaborative? Is it going to be authoritative? Are you data driven? Okay, all those that we talked about. Step 4, you're going to make the decision and you're going to own that decision. And then step 5, you're going to go back and analyze. Now, depending on how big or how small the decision is, probably is going to depend on when you go and analyze that decision. The point of this whole entire conversation is that you need to come up with a process as a leader. What's your decision-making process? Write it down, stick to it, tweak it, let it evolve throughout time. That's going to go a long way when you make those really difficult decisions, that you have at least a foundation of what your decision-making process looks like. Inflow and outflow, we run it through the process. We're comfortable with the process. So especially if you have to make a very difficult or hard decision, at least trust the process that you've established, run it through there, and then make that decision. If you make a bad decision, and I would even go as far as when you make a bad decision, we cannot make good decisions all the time. You've heard me say, fail fast, learn from our mistakes, and then move on down the road. That's innovation in a nutshell. We can't innovate if we don't fail once or twice. We can't stay on the cutting edge and be agile enough to move as an organization and come up with that new process, come up with that new system, come up with that new sales technique, come up with maybe the new hook or call to action. Whatever that looks like for you as a leader, you're going to fail. But the main point is that we stay consistent. We make a bad decision, we learn from that decision, and then we make another decision. And if that's good, then we take the delta there and we continue on with that. If we make 2 bad decisions in a row, guess what? We learn from those 2 bad decisions. Don't compound bad decisions. If, but how we will navigate this change. So it's not if we change, it's how. Once the decision has been made, you can't go back. So it's no use for you as the leader to communicate that. So how are we going to navigate through this change? Commitment is very important for us as a leader to make sure we have when we're navigating through a change or a decision that you and your team don't necessarily agree with. Ask the question, can you support this? And then pause. And that pause is going to feel like it's taking forever. Trust me. And if you have to go around the room and ask each one of the individuals in the room, can you support this? We don't have to agree with the change. We don't have to agree with the decision, but we do have to support it. There's no going back. We're moving forward. How can we navigate through this challenge, through this change? How we commit to a decision, whether we think it matters or not, is the advice that we ask for or that we are given when it comes to that decision. So make sure as a leader that you are surrounding yourself with people who are giving you good advice. Did season 4 help you be just a little bit better when it comes to making decisions? Go be great.